Swiss fans have turned on Gianni Infantino, and it's putting the FIFA president under more pressure than ever. From controversial decisions to growing protests inside stadiums, the World Cup scandals are becoming impossible to ignore. Let me break it down. Start with the moment that set the tone. It happened during Spain's round of 32 win over Austria and Los Angeles. Spain was cruising, Mikel Oyarzabal was doing his thing. The crowd was buzzing. Then the broadcast cut to the stands, and there was Infantino sitting with his guests chatting away, completely unaware the camera had found him. FIFA President Gianni Infantino was heavily booed when shown on the screen during Spain's win over Austria, and the jeers had nothing to do with the action on the field. In the stands, Infantino was shown on the big screen, prompting loud boos from the capacity crowd. That's not a small detail. That's tens of thousands of people in a stadium built for football, choosing to boo the man who runs football the moment they see his face. And it wasn't a one-off. Infantino was also booed during the opening ceremony at the Azteca Stadium ahead of Mexico's win over South Africa. Think about that, the opening ceremony. The moment that's supposed to be pure celebration, fireworks, flags, national pride. And the crowd still found a way to let him know how they felt. Now bring it back to Switzerland specifically, because this is where it gets personal for Infantino. He's Swiss-born, he's the guy who told interviewers his first World Cup memory was watching Italy win it all. As a 12-year-old, engraved in his heart the whole nostalgic bit. He spent years positioning himself as football's #1 fan. But when Switzerland actually took the pitch this tournament, the Swiss Federation itself wasn't exactly rallying behind him. They were raising red flags. In a Swiss Federation statement, all the more conspicuous for being the country that houses FIFA, the Federation said this decision raises questions and creates uncertainty, particularly regarding the authority of referees' decisions. That's not a fan on social media typing in all caps. That's Infantino's own home federation, the one headquartered in the same country as FIFA itself, publicly questioning the integrity of decisions being made under his watch. Infantino, meanwhile, was doing what he does, showing up to as many matches as physically possible. His original proposal was to attend 2 games per day, as often as possible, clocking up serious air miles aboard his private jet. And while he didn't quite cover as much ground as he initially intended, he still popped up all over Canada, Mexico, and the United States. During the World Cup, he was in San Francisco for Switzerland's opener against Qatar. He was in Vancouver for Switzerland's knockout win over Algeria, witnessing Switzerland muster their first World Cup knockout stage victory since 1938 by vanquishing Algeria. He turned up again for the round of 16 tie, when the final round of 16 games saw Infantino nip just around the corner from Seattle into Canada, though it proved to be one of the most turgid ties of the tournament as Switzerland doggedly outlasted Colombia to win on penalties after 120 minutes of goalless graft. So picture the scene in Vancouver. BC Place packed out, Colombian fans in yellow dominating the stands. After driving and flying in from across the continent, reports from local media and fans indicated that Colombians vastly outnumbered Swiss supporters inside the 54,000-seat stadium. Infantino is right there among the dignitaries, watching a nation that's supposed to be his own grind out a penalty shootout. And this is the same tournament where, just days earlier, a fan had handed him an Egyptian flag pitchside, and he accepted it, unfurled it, and gave a thumbs up. According to La Sexta, a moment that raised eyebrows given the controversy already swirling around Egypt's own exit from the tournament. Every appearance Infantino makes now comes loaded. He can't sit in a crowd without the cameras hunting for a reaction shot, and increasingly, what they're finding is hostility. There was already a version of this brewing back at the group stage, when Infantino gave an interview to an Argentine journalist and appeared to let slip that he'd suffered watching Argentina's nail-biter against Cape Verde before correcting himself to insist he was neutral. In a viral video, Infantino supposedly said, "Tonight I suffered with Argentina, but I'm neutral," with the latter part coming out hastily, as if he'd caught himself mid-thought. Fans clipped it, replayed it, and ran with it. One fan wrote on social media, "The FIFA president. WHO should be neutral, is stressed and relieved that Argentina has qualified. It's still right in front of US, demanding neutrality from the FIFA president." That clip mattered because it planted the idea early that the man overseeing the tournament wasn't actually neutral about who won it. And once that idea takes hold, every big decision that follows gets read through that lens, including the one that turned Swiss frustration into something closer to fury. Every red card, every VAR reversal, every controversial call from that point forward got measured against the question, is this fair, or is this Infantino's fingerprints on the scoreboard? The boos at Spain's game, the boos at the opening ceremony, the tension radiating out of Vancouver, none of it happened in a vacuum. It built match by match off the back of decisions that felt increasingly hard to explain, and nothing crystallized that feeling faster than what happened next. when a single phone call turned simmering frustration into a full-blown scandal that dragged Infantino's name through every back page in Europe. If the boos were the warning sign, this next part is the actual dam break. The moment critics point to when they say Infantino stopped, even pretending the tournament was above politics. It centers on a match between the United States and Bosnia and Herzegovina. American forward Folarin Balogun caught Bosnian defender Tarik Muharretovic with his boot on the ankle during the game, and referees issued a straightforward red card, which under FIFA's own disciplinary code carries an automatic one-match ban. Standard stuff, except this dismissal happened to knock the tournament's co-host's breakout scorer out of a round of 16 clash with Belgium, and that's when things stopped being standard. In July 2026, US President Donald Trump called Infantino and asked FIFA to review the red card issued to Balogun. Not appeal through the normal channels, not a federation statement. A direct call from the president of the host nation to the president of FIFA. And it worked. FIFA subsequently suspended Balogun's automatic one-match ban for a one-year probationary period, allowing him to play in the round of 16 against Belgium. The backlash was immediate, and it wasn't limited to one country. The decision drew criticism from UEFA, the Royal Belgian Football Association, and several international coaches who questioned its implications for fair play and future disciplinary decisions and called for Infantino to resign. That's UEFA, European football's own governing body, openly turning on the man who used to run their organization before he took the top job at FIFA. The decision prompted criticism from Belgium's Football Association as well as UEFA, which argued that setting aside a suspension after direct political intervention undermined the integrity of the tournament and set a dangerous precedent. Infantino tried to get ahead of it. He denied there was political interference, stating the disciplinary committee was independent. But the timing did the talking for him. A call from the Oval Office followed within a news cycle, by FIFA reversing course on a decision it had already made. That's not a coincidence anyone in European football was willing to swallow quietly. Behind the scenes, FIFA's own machinery seemed to be scrambling. One insider described the mood inside the organization in stark terms. Once the story broke, as supine as Infantino may be towards Trump, the FIFA president couldn't help but be aghast at what was coming out. And you could sense the panic in the flurry of statements that FIFA was suddenly releasing, having previously been so quiet. That's the word insiders themselves reached for: panic. Statement after statement, walking back, clarifying, insisting on independence. All after the fact, all reactive. One source close to the situation put it even more bluntly, describing the entire episode as contrived and pointing the finger squarely at the timing of Trump's own comments about it. As one source said, there was no reason for the case at all. This is completely contrived, and Trump is spilling all the beans. When the people inside your own organization are describing your flagship tournaments, biggest disciplinary reversal as contrived, that's not a good week. And this is exactly where Switzerland re-enters the story. Because it wasn't just UEFA as an institution pushing back. It was Infantino's own federation, back home, putting its concerns in writing. That statement about questions and uncertainty around the authority of referees' decisions wasn't a throwaway line. It was Switzerland, the country FIFA is headquartered in, essentially telling its most famous football export that the credibility of the sport's officiating was now in doubt on his watch. The ripple effects went beyond football. In July, the International Olympic Committee received a request to its Ethics Commission to investigate Infantino, who serves as an IOC member. That's a separate governing body, outside football entirely, now being asked to formally look into his conduct. When your own sports institutions are joined by international sporting bodies raising ethics questions, the story stops being a football controversy and starts being a governance one. Analysts covering the fallout pointed to a pattern that stretched well beyond this one incident. Although all of the issues around this World Cup and Infantino's presidency remain huge issues despite the success of the tournament, none of it really resonates for the average fan. What absolutely does resonate is when it affects what happens on the pitch, attuning the wider world to questions of sporting integrity and FIFA's legitimacy. That's the mechanism at play here. Fans can tune out governance disputes for years. They can't tune out a red card getting overturned by a phone call from a head of state live in the middle of the tournament. They paid thousands of dollars to attend. And the Balogun reversal wasn't happening in isolation either. It landed on top of a tournament already thick with officiating controversy. The Croatian Federation's formal complaint over VAR and ball sensor technology. The Argentina-Cape Verde own goal drama, the Switzerland-Argentina red card, that Swiss fans online immediately flagged as suspicious. The ruling immediately sparked outrage across social media, with supporters charging FIFA with skewing the tournament toward Argentina's benefit. With one supporter posting, "Of course, as soon as Switzerland ties it up with Argentina, the Swiss get a red card, but no, not rigged at all." Every one of those moments on their own might have blown over in a news cycle, stacked together with a sitting US president now confirmed to have personally intervened in a disciplinary case. They built into something that couldn't be waved away with a press release. And that's exactly what set the stage for the loudest voices in football. People who'd worked with Infantino, competed against him, covered him for years, to start saying in public that he needed to go. Once the Balogun story broke, the criticism stopped being anonymous. It started coming from names everybody in football recognizes. And that's a different kind of pressure than angry posts from strangers online. Start with the man Infantino replaced. Sepp Blatter doesn't have a spotless reputation himself, but even he came out swinging. Blatter was sharply critical of Infantino and Trump's conduct, writing on social media that red cards are not overturned by political phone calls. They are overturned by rules, evidence, and independent bodies. When the disgraced former president you replaced specifically to clean up, the organization is now lecturing you on independence. That's a strange kind of full-circle moment. Broadcasters piled on next. Sky Sports presenter Jeff Stelling labeled it an absolute disgrace and called for Infantino to resign. Then came the football people, actual managers and players, who have spent their careers inside the sport. German manager Jürgen Klopp also called for his resignation, as did British journalist and former England captain Gary Lineker. Klopp isn't someone who wades into governance fights for fun. When he's willing to put his name to a resignation call, that tells you where the temperature inside the sport actually is. It didn't stop with pundits. UEFA officials have reportedly been discussing possible alternatives to Infantino, with North American football leaders seeming to prefer the Canadian Victor Montagliani, who might have some support beyond the Americas given Canada's handling of the World Cup. That's not fans venting. That's the actual mechanics of a succession conversation happening in real time, while the tournament he's presiding over is still being played. Player representation weighed in too. FIFPRO President Sergio Marchi even went so far as to compare Infantino to the infamous Roman Emperor Nero before last summer's Club World Cup. That's the player's own union head reaching for one of history's most notorious symbols of unchecked power to describe how he sees FIFA's current leadership. Then there's Michel Platini, who's got his own history with Infantino that goes well beyond public criticism. Platini has filed a criminal complaint against the FIFA president and 5 Swiss soccer and prosecution officials in relation to a financial wrongdoing case from 2015. Platini isn't neutral in this. He's got his own grievances baked in. But his description of Infantino's character has stuck around because plenty of others in the game nodded along. He likes the rich and powerful people, the ones with money, the former France number 10 told The Guardian. And an anonymous member of the FIFA Council told Politico that Infantino's problem isn't corruption but his self-confidence. The council member added that Infantino loves dictators and billionaires, and that when he sees people with money, he melts. Then there's the political layer, which is arguably more dangerous for Infantino long-term than any pundit's opinion. Likely more troubling for Infantino are demands for an investigation by 72 European lawmakers in the European Parliament. 72 elected officials from a bloc that includes some of football's most powerful federations, formally pushing for scrutiny. That's not a headline that fades in a week. Infantino's own past comments about criticism have aged strangely given everything happening now. Back at a FIFA Congress in Rwanda, journalists pressed him on governance questions, and he visibly bristled. "I don't understand why some of you are so mean," he told journalists, adding, "I don't get it. We work hard, I work hard, the whole FIFA team works hard. We don't steal, we don't profit." That quote gets replayed constantly now, because every fresh scandal makes it read less like a defense, and more like a man who genuinely can't process why people keep pushing back. Not everyone in the sport wants him gone though, and that's important context for understanding why he hasn't budged despite all the noise. Infantino is well liked by sports officials in the global south who have benefited from the money he brings into the game. And the most important federations for voting purposes, the African and Asian confederations, seem likely to back him for an unprecedented 4th term. That's the tension running underneath everything. European voices, Klopp, Lineker, Stelling, UEFA officials, are the loudest in the press. But the actual voting bloc that decides whether Infantino keeps his job sits somewhere else entirely. And that bloc has largely stayed quiet or supportive. Even so, the volume of criticism from inside the sport's most recognizable names has done something the booze alone couldn't. It's turned Infantino from a background administrator into a figure people actively argue about on football shows, in newspaper columns, in parliament chambers. And that shift in visibility from invisible bureaucrat to lightning rod set up the next part of this story, the questions about how he's been living and spending while all of this unfolds around him. Every scandal needs a symbol, and for Infantino's critics, it's been his travel schedule. While Swiss fans were booing him on stadium screens and European federations were drafting formal complaints, Infantino was in the air, constantly hopping between host cities on a private jet. FIFA President Gianni Infantino has been a busy man at this World Cup, and his unquenchable thirst to pack in as many matches as possible has caused unrest among environmentalists, questioning his indifference to climate change. The Italo-Swiss boss powered up his private jet to appear in the stands 10 times in 7 days. Across Mexico City, Guadalajara, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Vancouver, Seattle, Kansas City, and Houston. 10 stadium appearances in a week. That's not a president attending a tournament. That's a president trying to be seen at every single marquee moment of it. And this wasn't new behavior suddenly discovered mid-tournament. His insatiable use of a Qatar Airways private jet is nothing new. In September 2024, the investigative outlet Josimer revealed that he had used the plane to clock up 600,000 kilometers over the previous 3 years. Environmental groups didn't hold back once the pattern repeated itself on an even bigger stage. John Hosvar, Ocean's campaign director of Greenpeace USA, said that having executives take daily flights on highly polluting private jets doesn't exactly send the message that FIFA recognizes its responsibility to be part of the solution to climate change. Then there's the money fans were actually being asked to pay to watch any of this. FIFA was heavily criticized by media and fans for raising ticket prices for the final match, with a single ticket costing $11,000. Infantino didn't dodge the criticism. He leaned into defending it. In May 2026, Infantino defended the price of tickets, insisting the organization had to apply market rates. That line got dissected everywhere, especially once it became clear how many seats sat empty because of it. The high ticket prices are seen as a possible cause for empty seats seen during multiple matches. Fan advocacy groups had already been sounding alarms before a ball was even kicked. Football Supporters Europe pointed out that FIFA holds a monopoly over ticket sales for the World Cup, and has used that power to impose conditions on fans that would never be acceptable in a competitive market, leaving loyal fans with no other choice but to pay up or lose out. Even Donald Trump, whose relationship with Infantino runs through the rest of this story, admitted the opener was priced out of his own comfort zone. Trump even admitted that he wouldn't pay the reported $1,000 required to watch his country's tournament opener against Paraguay. Which brings us to the relationship that's shadowed almost every controversy in this story, Infantino and Trump. Months before the Balogun phone call, Infantino had already made a decision that stunned even people used to his style of leadership. Infantino reportedly bypassed his own 37-member council to unilaterally create and award Trump the inaugural FIFA Peace Prize during the World Cup draw. No vote, no committee process, just a president deciding on his own to hand the leader of the tournament's host nation an award invented for the occasion. That decision looks very different in hindsight once you line it up against everything that followed. The personal phone call over Balogun's red card, the reversal that came right after UEFA's fury. In December 2025, Infantino awarded Trump the inaugural FIFA Peace Prize, a decision that seems to have been a unilateral one by the FIFA president. Critics didn't need to speculate about why Trump felt comfortable picking up the phone and asking for a favor. The relationship had already been established publicly with a trophy. It's part of a pattern that goes back years, and it's exactly what fuels the Nero comparisons. And the dictator remarks from FIFA Council insiders. In 2018, Infantino was FIFA's president when Russia hosted the World Cup, an event he called the best ever. And the following year, Putin awarded him the Russian Order of Friendship for his service to Russia. He has also been on the record supporting the reintroduction of Russian athletes into FIFA competition, despite the ongoing invasion of Ukraine. add in his defense of Qatar during the 2022 tournament. He was similarly supportive of Qatari officials in 2022. And when they faced criticism over labor practices that resulted in roughly 6,500 deaths. In the years leading up to that World Cup, Infantino defended the hosts. And the throughline becomes obvious: powerful leaders, expensive gestures. And Infantino positioned right in the middle of it, smiling for the cameras while the criticism piles up around him. And piling up it is, between the jet fuel receipts, the $11,000 final tickets, the unilateral peace prize, and the now confirmed presidential phone call over a red card. Infantino's critics have more than enough material to argue this isn't a man reacting to isolated bad press. It's a pattern of behavior that's finally caught up with him in front of the one audience he can't spin. The fans actually sitting in the stadiums, booing him on the big screen in the country of his own birth. So where does all of this actually land Infantino? Because for all the boos, all the resignation calls, all the parliamentary demands, he's still sitting in the president's box. The numbers explain a lot of why. FIFA's revenues could rise 73% from its previous 4-year budget cycle, and the proportion reinvested into the sport has risen sevenfold, to a total of about $5 billion since 2016, according to FIFA. That's an organization that's gotten dramatically richer under his leadership. And money buys patience from federations that depend on FIFA's payouts to build stadiums and train players in the first place. The system is one of patronage of FIFA associations receive payouts of up to $8 million each. In the 4-year cycle that began in 2023, under the FIFA Forward system Infantino implemented a decade ago. And much of that goes to poorer countries to help them train players or build stadiums. That's the mechanism keeping him afloat while Europe fumes. Analysts covering the fallout keep landing on the same conclusion. Despite some in the press seeing his position as untenable, the twice re-elected FIFA president will likely be able to see off threats to his rule, unless the European Union and potentially also North American officials can put financial pressure on FIFA. Boos don't remove a president, votes do, and the votes are concentrated somewhere the boos aren't being heard as loudly. Still, the damage to how he's perceived, even among people who will still vote for him, is hard to undo. Even the reporters who track his travel schedule for a living can't help but note the optics have shifted. There's an ongoing debate about what Infantino's legacy as FIFA president will actually be: reformer or ringleader. 10 years ago, that question would have sounded absurd. He came in as the anti-corruption candidate. Infantino was a member of the 2016 Reform Committee and was supported by European and North American federations as an anti-corruption candidate, with his narrow victory lauded as a win for real change in the footballing body. A decade later, the same commentators tracking his career describe a different man running the organization. 10 years into his presidency, Infantino has become increasingly authoritarian and less transparent. He has ended the reform processes that brought FIFA's poor governance to light, and he has fired officials involved in the ethics investigations, even the investigations that once threatened his organization have quietly gone cold. In 2026, U.S. investigators ended their probe into financial fraud in global football, saying it no longer fits the Trump administration's priorities, which loops back to Switzerland and to why those boos landed the way they did. This is a man who has spent a decade cultivating relationships with the most powerful people on earth: Putin, the Qatari royal family, Mohammed bin Salman, and now Trump. While the fans who actually fill the stadiums, including the ones from his own country, watch red cards get reversed by phone call and ticket prices climb into 5 figures. The distance between the man in the private jet and the fans in the cheap seats has never been more visible. And Swiss crowds, of all people, were the ones who made sure the cameras caught it. Infantino has weathered criticism before and come out the other side re-elected, twice. He's shown no public sign of stepping back, no acknowledgement that the boos or the resignation calls have shaken his plans. If anything, the numbers suggest he's better positioned than ever, with revenue up, a 4th term looking plausible, and a voting bloc in the global south that has little appetite for replacing him. But something has shifted this tournament that wasn't there before. It's one thing to be criticized by journalists in print. It's another to be jeered by name on the big screen by tens of thousands of people at once, in stadium after stadium, including in front of his own countrymen wearing the Swiss red. Whether that turns into anything more than noise depends on whether Europe's football powers can actually convert their outrage into votes, and on whether the fans who booed him this summer are still angry enough to keep booing the next time the cameras find him. For now, the man who once called himself football's #1 fan is spending this World Cup finding out what it feels like to be football's most unwanted guest. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content. Sources: List of 2026 FIFA World Cup controversies, Wikipedia. FIFA president under fire after claiming he suffered during tense Argentina clash, Yahoo Sports. Football fans' most hated man, Golka. World Cup fans furious as they claim tournament rigged, Yahoo Sports. Balogun, Garrincha, and Pinochet. FIFA's controversial World Cup decisions, Al Jazeera. Donald Trump gets concerning warning after Gianni Infantino's appearance, The Mirror. Where has Infantino been? FIFA president clocks up nearly 50,000 miles, ESPN. Gianni Infantino, Wikipedia. Colombia soccer fans invade Vancouver ahead of World Cup round of 16 outkick. Colombia fans turn Vancouver into a sea of yellow. Colombia won. Infantino receives Egyptian flag from fan at Switzerland versus Colombia, all football. Gianni Infantino's Trumpification of FIFA will have repercussions, Yahoo Sports. After the red card scandal, has the shine come off Gianni Infantino's World Cup? The conversation. Inside the $9 billion World Cup, Fortune. FIFA draws criticism as Infantino clocks up air miles, Yahoo Sports, https://sports.yahoo.com/articles/FIFA draws criticism Infantino clocks 61,948,743, HTML.